This is intended to be a short video that just brings together elements of my 3 challenges. So currently the game lets you look, make a choice, and then plays a video of the choice, and that's based on the IAM principles around observe, anticipate, prioritize, decide, and act. I want to build a range of scenarios that draw on my videos, but currently the game model lacks sufficient detail. So my initial focus is going to be on road surfaces and bends. I'm hoping that will mean there can be some scenarios involving position, limit point, and throttle control. I'm not aiming to make the thing look realistic, but just to give enough of a sense of detail so you can get an idea of speed, etc. If I were starting this whole project again, I might try to build this in Unity directly, like a 3D game that you just pause at certain points. But since I've already got a section of straight road modelled, I created a curve and had the model repeat as an array along that. There were 2 problems as a result of that approach. Firstly, the ends were not flush, and I think that's because this is an irregular shape, so it doesn't neatly mathematically stop at the point that it starts. Secondly, the ends were twisted, and that seems to be a feature caused by the way the nodes are put in and rotated as you go along. The solution that I came up with was just to create some more nodes on the straight section of road and have the join there, with each node having the same orientation and rotation. Looking across the length of the curve, I saw that rather like a roller coaster or a piece of ribbon, lots of the curves were tilted and twisted, so I had to go back to every node, and they do seem to have a knock-on effect. If you adjust one node, it changes the others. Ultimately, I got something that is good enough. It's not perfect, the bends are flatter, there are changes in elevation, so you can look down on the road from up high, and that is part of a sort of observation technique that can be practiced. I don't know if there's any real benefit in having created it as a loop, and if that becomes a real problem later on and a real headache, then I'll just make it a non-looping piece of road. So the texture should be something relatively straightforward. I've got HDR lighting and I've got existing asphalt textures, but putting them in tends to create a tiled effect, even with a texture that claims to be seamless. When you put it over a big enough distance, it just seems to look like a repeating pattern. So I've tried this time to use the new node from Polygon that creates repeating tiles, but at irregular orientations and with irregular edges. Now, obviously, there's still a lot of fiddling around with displacement, reflectivity, and scale and colour, but I do think that the ability to change the orientation of the individual tiles is quite helpful if you do it at the right scale. So you can see some of these, it doesn't really work, but in others it does, and I think that's just a matter of playing around with it. I tried then to look at the road texture in proportion to the vehicles that were going over it, and to have a sense to see whether or not you could get a sense of depth as you looked ahead. Some of this I felt was a bit distracting. This looked a little bit too bumpy, but I ultimately ended up with something that I hoped would be okay. I found that using normals didn't really work, and the displacement was really sensitive. The reflectivity had a natural kind of fall off, which gave a good sense of depth, and trying to get the right sense of grey was just a real pain, because in reality roads change their hue and their shade along their length. But hopefully what I came up with is going to have sufficient detail without being too distracting. I am sure that there are better ways of doing this, so it might be something that I revisit in the future. So the next steps in this challenge are going to be to make more of the environment. I've got a road and I need to build the other things around it and then start to work on some of the scenarios. I'm hoping that's going to be a relatively straightforward process, having already got the game to accept the principle of having a point at which you make a decision and then it plays a video.